All right, welcome back. We're working on our sunshine bodice. We have our front bodice pieces cut. If you see the other video, you will see how to assemble and cut your front bodice pieces. So now we are going to construct the bodice here. So I'm going to lay one of my pieces right side up. I'm using a solid, so you can't really tell the difference between the right side up and the wrong side up, so that's a plus. So now I'm going to take my other piece and lay it right on top of the other one, and I'm going to actually, you'll notice that in the instructions in the tutorial there is a mention of when you're sewing along this side here and the side of to the side of the bodice, you want to stop a half inch before the edge. So actually what I do is I lay it down on my cutting mat and I take a friction pin. So it's a pin that you just buy in the regular pin aisle at any store, and it's called friction. And what's great about it is you can make a mark on your fabric, and heat just erases it, so you can just iron it away. So what I actually do is I mark right at that half-inch mark on both sides. And I do it on the other side too, just because I never know which side I'm going to put my sewing machine on. I just always mark both sides. So marking the half inch. So now we are actually going to pin or clip where we are going to be sewing. So where we are going to be sewing is along, I like pins, or I like clips over pins. They're just faster for me. So I just make sure my edges are lined up and I just pin real quick. So we're gonna be sewing all along what I would call the neckline. And then make sure my edges are matched up there. And then now we're going to be sewing on the inside here. So the strap here and along where it goes. And so remember, we made our mark, but I pin all the way up to there. So on the other side here real quick. Pins or clips are just faster than me, and I always poke myself with pins, but sometimes I use pins, so I always have them. Okay, so now we are all pinned and ready to go to our sewing machine. So we will go ahead and grab the machine. Okay, now we are at the sewing machine and we are going to go ahead and get started. Now the seam allowances are 1/4 of an inch. So what I do to start off with, I'm going to start where we made that mark earlier, so we know to where to start and stop. Remember to back stitch. Now I just use a regular straight stitch, and then sorry about the camera. And then later on I will go and I will trim my curves and my corners with pinking shears, so I don't have to worry about fraying. If you wanted to, you for sure can use a overlocking stitch. I just prefer to use a straight stitch. So I actually use like a 3.5 millimeter straight stitch, whatever you're comfortable with, or whatever your machine, whatever you like on your machine. So I'm going to go ahead and just sew along here. We'll do so when we get to the corner here, we just stop with our needle down, turn, and then line it up, and then continue to sew here. And then we stop and make sure you back stitch to lock in your stitches. And so that's one side of it. And then so now we'll do the neckline real quick, and you would repeat it on the other side. And we're going to go ahead and do along what I consider the neckline, because the strap and the neckline ended up being all one piece. So here we go. Always stop with your needle down to pivot your foot. The sunshine dress is really such an easy sew for such a fun back. So it's really neat to get such a fun and different look on the back for such an easy sew, since it's, you know, once you kind of see how it's put together, you can really have fun with it, with your different buttons or snaps or different linings. Remember to pivot. And then back stitch. And we are all done with that. Once you repeat on the other side, remembering to stop a 1/2 inch from where the side of your bodice will be. Now I will go and grab my pinking shears. I'll finish this and go grab my pinking shears and show you how I trim and clip the corners. Okay, so we are back, and now we are going to take our pinking shears. Make sure you don't trim, you know, past that mark. And then I just go here, and when you trim with pinking shears, it's kind of nice because it makes the notches that you already need, especially for your curves. So you kind of cover 2 steps all at once. You know, you clipping your curves, and then also with the pinking shears, your fabric won't fray when you use pinking shears. So that's kind of why I do it. It's really nice. So then I just kind of clip that, and then so you'll do the same thing. And you know, when they tell you to clip corners, it's kind of nice with the pinking shears. You just go in there and it's automatically clipped for you, like that. And then same with the curve around the neckline. You're just gonna take that, and then so when we turn it out here, all your corners will be clipped and your curves will be clipped, so it'll lay a lot nicer. So I'm gonna finish clipping my seam allowance, and then we'll go to turning right side out and top stitching. All right, so now we have everything stitched and all of our seam allowance clipped and our corners clipped and everything like that. So now we are going to just turn our bodice right sides out, and it's really easy because you can kind of just get your fingers in here and, you know, come in from the bodice and pull it out here. This, you know, the straps aren't too thin, so you can just pull it out this way. If you would like, you can, if you're, especially if you're sewing a little bit of the smaller sizes, since I'm sewing a size 5, you could use a safety pin or, you know, something like that. But I just find it's just as easy to do it like this. So we're gonna turn this right side out, get our straps here, and I just kind of get my finger in there. Okay, so a really important step here that you do not want to skip is to make sure that you are taking some sort of stick or something to kind of press out your corners. You want really sharp corners. You want to make sure that you're getting those really sharp, nice corners on that. And then so when we top stitch, when we go to press it and then we'll top stitch all where we just sewed, you'll have nice sharp corners. So after you turn your whole bodice right side out, you want to take your, I just use a pin. I also have a large knitting needle that you can, like a wooden knitting needle, a wooden dowel, something with kind of a sharp end that you can kind of, you know, press, you know, really give those, kind of push those corners out. If you can see that, you want to kind of push those corners out. And then when you go to iron and top stitch, you have really nice sharp corners. So that is what we're going to do next. We're going to go back to the sewing machine and just top stitch right where we just stitched. I won't video that because it's it's very much explained in the tutorial, but we will go through and explain how to attach the back bodice and the front bodice. That will be our next step in the video. Okay, we're back, and now we have our top stitched bodice and our constructed back bodice piece. How to construct the back bodice is in the tutorial. Very simple. You just make a casing, stitch in your elastic, and you're good to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up the bottom corners of the front bodice and the back bodice and just pin it there. So now, but what you want to make sure, sorry, that's my iron. So you want to make sure that you are just pinning the main fabric in the back bodice. You want to make sure you don't pin your lining. And then you're going to take your strap, and now, so we're treating this as our right side. So you want to take your strap and flip it down to right under the underarm. And again, pin just to the main bodice and not the lining. And we're going to repeat that with the other side. Now remember that the back bodice is going to be shorter than your front bodice because of the elastic. So again, flip down your strap and line it up to that underarm and pin it just to the main. So this is what it should look like all pinned, and see, now you can see where it's going to start to form where you're going to put your buttons and your cute back. So now we're going to take that lining And we're going to take it out from behind there, and we're actually going to just flip it all onto itself and pin it. So that's why you left that 1/2 inch seam allowance unstitched when you were stitching your bodice main and your lining together. So now you're just going to pin all that together on both sides. Go on to the other side here. And real quick pin it. Make sure you're getting all the layers in there. So now we're going to go, you're just going to go back to your sewing machine and stitch on down right there. So just write down those 2 bodices, same between your back bodice and your bodice main and your bodice lining. Okay, so now our bodice is all stitched together. So we're just going to flip it right side out. Get those corners poked out. And then now we are just going to finish by finishing our top stitch from right there on down. And then our bodice will be complete.